So we are back with more Emerald Dream cards to review. Today we have pretty crazy Paladin legendary and a bunch of neutral cards, some of which might feel like filler, but I think a few that are actually standouts might be pretty relevant cards. That said, let's kick things off here with Torith the Annoying, as he may soon be called. This is a 5-mana 3/4 with Divine Shield and Taunt, and most importantly, your Divine Shields take 3 hits to break. So you just slam this guy down, a minion-based deck, it's gonna be like, oh my god, dude. They have to hit this basically 4 times to kill it. 3 hits to get rid of the Divine Shields, 1 to get rid of the body, and then they finally get to push through to face, making this like the ultimate like annoying speed bump kind of card, you know? It is just like a nightmare to deal with this if you're relying on damage-based removal, which could be spell-based, right? Like damage-based spells still have a hard time with this, or obviously minion trades. Really only like clean, efficient, hard removal will deal effectively with Torith the Unbreaking. I guess like silence effects as well. Maybe that even becomes relevant if this card shows up too much because people get so annoyed by it. But just like a really, really annoying body to push through, which probably gives this just some general utility. Like maybe any Paladin can run this just because it's like, hey man, if I play this down on 5, it is just the most high friction card perhaps in Hearthstone, and against a lot of decks that's just going to be like a 4-for-1. You know, they got a board full of 3/3s, maybe can't even easily, if they got 4 3/3s, not even getting through it technically. You gotta have one dealing at least 4 for the base body. Keep in mind you could also like buff this up a little bit if they don't get through it all in one push. Keep in mind you can give it Divine Shield again. We have the Paladin drink that makes it super cheap and easy to give characters, importantly, which we're gonna talk about. Divine Shield, Divine Brew here, right? Like load it up again. A new Divine Shield presumably still takes a new 3 hits, so it's like you better get through it all at once, or you got another problem. Now, you know, the fact that this has Taunt does mean other minions on board probably aren't as interesting. Like the opponent can always kind of push through this guy first. An important balancing decision for sure, otherwise this would be an absolute unbelievable nightmare. So, you know, a board like of other Divine Shield cards is maybe a little less relevant. There could still be worlds where, you know, you have Divine Shield cards on board that are ready to attack and you play Torith and they kind of get to take a free trade. Normally that would exhaust their Divine Shield, but in this case, they actually still have the Divine Shield. So it just adds an extra layer of stickiness to any like trading boards. I don't know how often that will be the relevant use case for Torith, but it is something to keep an eye on if you put them in a full-on Divine Shield deck. Now, speaking of Divine Brew, remember Divine Brew can also give a character Divine Shield, which includes the hero. So you can actually play Torith, give your hero Divine Shield, and use it as like an OTK lethal counter, whereas if your opponent is trying to deal damage via spell-based damage, like they want to sling a bunch of fireballs at your face or whatever, suddenly gets a lot harder because now they have to use 3 of their damage-based plays to get through the Divine Shield. And if they don't have, you know, arcane missiles style effects that can ping through it really easily, those first few Divine Shields could just shut them out of lethal. It's like, hey, that's my fireballs getting absorbed by 2 extra Divine Shields. I'm like completely screwed in that case. So there's like the crazy onboard friction that's just like so scary to me, like really, really annoying and powerful. Then there's actually like this little sneaky countery stuff too that exists, where triple Divine Shields on a hero is really nice. Singular Divine Shields on a hero haven't felt like that crazy to me. Usually they're not that hard to deal with, but suddenly, you know, having 3 at once is nice. Now, you know, Torith is, you know, it's not the rest of game or anything. This has to be on board, so it is susceptible in some ways, but you know, like we said, it's just all about that hard removal. Do they have a way to deal with this with a removal spell as opposed to damage-based cards? If not, man, this card's gonna just snowball like crazy, give you tons of time, trade in really effectively, just super, super annoying. So very strong card. I think maybe universally good in Paladin, and then probably has some like specific like combos and interactions as well that people will try to utilize too. So just very, very high potential card. All right, so moving on to some of these neutral cards. We got Mother Duck here. My toddler would be so excited. She freaking loves ducks more than anything on earth. 4 mana 2/3 beast, battle cry, summon 3 1/1 ducklings with rush. You can see there the ducklings are very cute, and yeah, I think this card's actually kind of intriguing, right? It's just a lot of stuff, and it's got that immediacy we like to see. So these 1/1s can like trade in as needed, you know, maybe just clean up a 3/3, worst case clean up some 1/1s, pop off some divine shields if you're worried about that in particular. It's just a lot of bodies, and it's beasts, and you know, we have these wide board token synergy things. It can always happen across a variety of classes. Since this is a neutral card, we have a lot of things that beasts might like to do in Hunter. You could just see it many ways that this card could interact well, just because it, you know, it's throwing out so many different bodies, and it's doing it pretty quickly and pretty efficiently. So, you know, it's not the most glamorous card in the world, but this is one of those neutral cards that you definitely want to keep in the back of your mind, because I think a handful of decks could find a way to use this. Moving on to the Daydreaming Pixie. This guy is awfully cute too, so sleepy and peaceful. But I don't think he's very good. He's a 2 mana 0/4. At the end of your turn, get a random nature spell. I mean, that's just too much stuff. There's any kind of random pool like that, you're just gonna get such a random mix of garbagey stuff. Even if your deck is running nature spell synergies, you have to imagine, you know, this is not gonna be worth the slot in the deck. There's probably more targeted results that you're ultimately going to be looking for, and you know, the body on board here is ultimately pretty free and pretty useless for the opponent to trade into. So this card looks very cute but very bad. The critter Caretaker, on the other hand, I like this one quite a bit. A 1 mana 2/2. At the end of your turn, restore 3 health to both heroes. This is that zombie chow kind of card. We looked at that 1 mana 3/3 earlier that was like really hard to get awake. You know, you had a hero power to wake it up, and I was like, you know, this is not the kind of card you want to play early as like a defensive body. This, on the other hand, is the kind of card you want to play early as a defensive body, because if you play this on 1, you know, you're just happy that you've gotten something down to slow down your opponent's early cards, take an early trade. It didn't have to heal you in that instance, you didn't care. But importantly, this is still kind of useful later. A lot of those cards, like the classic zombie chow model, after turn 1, they fell off really hard and felt bad to run in your deck because they just didn't do anything on like turn 7. It's like, man, the zombie chow is actually a liability to some extent. The critter Caretaker, on the other hand, is now still going to be useful. Like, slot this in on turn 7. That 3 health might not be a ton, but it's something. You know, it might make the difference, and it's still kind of annoying for the opponent too, because they have to deal with it. Like, yes, of course, the symmetry of the 3 health heal could also kind of be a liability if you're turning the corner and trying to kill the opponent, but the kinds of decks that would value this are just going to win through, you know, late game attrition or value or just, you know, combo, whatever it is. They have enough lethality and plan to secure the victory that the 3 health won't really matter to them. It's more about those aggro decks you're trying to slow down, where that 3 health is a meaningful breakpoint very often, and this could make the difference. So the fact that it has utility early and utility late, I think actually makes this a really solid anti-aggro kind of card. Moving on to the Dream Rager. This is a sick looking Rager artwork, by the way. This is a 3 mana 5/1, and it has elusive, so it can't be targeted by spells or hero powers, which does help in the world of Ragers. That was often one of their biggest weaknesses, is like, hey, you know, I can just ping this down as a mage and it's useless. So it's like, okay, you know, you don't have to worry about the mage ping, but you do still have to worry about a million 1/1s with rush. It's been such a common thing in Hearthstone these days. There's just so many 1/1s everywhere. We just saw the Ducks, more 1/1s with rush, and that just makes this way too easy to deal with and kill. Like, maybe you could argue, you know, hey, hand buffs or something, but it's just not going to be worth it in that case. There are plenty of other minions that will do better things than this. So unfortunately, Dream Rager is very bad once again. This card's crazy. The Ancient of Yore. I freaking love this dude wearing a mushroom hat. That is just a plus aesthetic, dude. This art is beautiful too. 5 mana 5/5 here. This guy's dormant for 2 turns, which, oh, that makes you nervous. But while dormant, you gain 5 armor and draw a card at the end of your turn, which I think is actually kind of solid. Usually you can't just like give up 5 mana for like, you know, 2 or 3 turns of waiting for the card to be relevant. But this, it's buying you time, because the armor in essence is like keeping you a little bit safe. You know, it's like, hey, I'm getting 10 health off this guy. That gave me a little breathing room. That's nice. And I'm getting cards, which is just like, man, okay, I'm drawing 2 as well. That's really nice. So, that's a nice combination that affords this card the luxury of time that most of these cards just don't really have. And I think that actually makes it kind of interesting. Like, you know, you're still getting the 5/5 eventually, which that's fine, but you're mostly happy that you're getting 10 armor and 2 cards. That's a pretty solid combination. And I think this has a real chance to make it into slow decks, particularly in a thinner rotation window like right now with only 4 sets in the meta. This is the kind of thing that gets in there. Maybe it gets cut later on as more cards become available for slower classes, but I kind of like this. The Dreambound Raptor, on the other hand, not a fan beyond its very cute nature. It is a 1-mana 2/1 beast. After you play a minion, give it a random bonus effect. So I think you guys know what bonus effects are by now, but those are the kind of base keywords: lifesteal, taunt, rush, etc. And I don't think that's going to be worth it here for the Dreambound Raptor. You know, it's play a minion, not summon, importantly, so you actually have to play these cards from hand in order to get this bonus, and it's just so inconsistent, right? And what deck is really dumping enough things to make the payoffs feel worth it? Like, are you ever actually playing like 5 cards from hand where you know you're going to get something pretty solid and you're going to get some rush, you're going to get some lifesteal? You don't even really know. In that case, you could roll taunt 5 times, right? It's not like you're guaranteed to get anything. And there it is the problem, you know, like there could be some really cool combos, but they're so unlikely to hit any given specific result for a given card. It's just not going to be worth the overhead. Like, yeah, you'll randomly generate this sometimes and some cool results will happen or whatever, but just not a card that makes a cut in a deck. Moving on to the Curious Cumulus. This is a fun one. A 4-mana 3/5 elemental. At the end of your turn, give your hero Divine Shield, which I don't think is going to be worth it in a vast majority of cases. Like we've talked about, you know, ping effects, 1/1s. There's just so many easy ways to solve these Divine Shields. And really the like heroes with Divine Shields has never felt relevant to me. Like it's certainly happening some with Druid right now with Artanis, and like there's been a moment or two where it was like kind of disruptive to me, but usually it doesn't feel all that problematic. Just so many ping effects, so many little things that I don't think Curious Cumulus is good in a majority of classes. But we did just look at that Paladin legendary, and like in that case, Divine Shield hero makes a little bit more sense. It's still, though, it's like only 1 turn probably, or, you know, in essence, two, like as long as Torith, the legendary guy, is on board, is as long as it's relevant. And is it worth running Curious Cumulus specifically in Paladin when Paladin already has ways to give your hero Divine Shield? Like, I don't think so. Like, I don't think you need multiples, right? You're just like running Divine Brew and you're happy, and like this is just so much more reliable and easy, and you know there's 3 drinks to this, so you're just chilling on this, I think, as opposed to needing to run something like Curious Cumulus. So even with like the bonus Divine Shield synergy potential that Paladin is capturing right now, I still don't really think Curious Cumulus makes the cut. All right, moving on to Scorching Observer. This is a big 9-mana 7/9 demon with rush and lifesteal, which it's a great combo, right? When we look at these really, really big bodied cards like this, high cost minions like this, they need something like that that gives them a ton of like recovery or survivability. Now, you know, that's not enough to just like throw in a deck as is. I think there still is going to have to be some way to like cheat this or interact with this to make it worth it. So, you know, a big demon deck, for instance, this might be worth it in a big demon deck where you're just trying to summon this. Even stuff like, you know, Dungar Druid, you know, maybe this could be like a Dungar Druid card. I personally don't think it's as good as what they have had historically, but, you know, they're losing some stuff in rotation. So, like, maybe this could be that kind of card. It's not the most clear and amazing example of those we've seen, but it's the right kind of shape and keywords that it could be, right? So, particularly with that demon tag, this is one I think you should consider and think about. Probably not one that shows up regularly or often, but has some potential despite just being, you know, a big dumb 9-drop. Moving on to the Sporegnasher. This guy's crazy looking. 5-mana 1/5 poisonous with Death Rattle, deal 1 damage to a random enemy minion. So like, you know, it's very annoying to deal with on board. You know, that 1/5 hopefully can eat up a couple things with poisonous. Then the Death Rattle maybe eats up another thing. Could potentially, you know, go 3 or 4 for 1 or something with all this poisonous. In standard format, though, it's just not going to be relevant, right? Like, it's just too clunky, too awkward, too slow. It's like on the back foot, basically. Your opponent can just often ignore it. Feels like a monster arena card, you know? Like, arena, dude, this looks kind of sick to me, as I imagine him. I don't really play much arena. Seems insane in arena. Seems really bad in standard. Next up is the Meadow Strider. This is an 8 mana 6/11 beast with taunt and death rattle. Put a Meadow Strider on the bottom of your deck. It costs 1. So you play the first one of these. You're probably pretty sad about that, to be honest. just kind of a 6/11 taunt. But, you know, you get more Meadow Striders, and each one is putting a new one on the bottom of your deck. So, like, at an end game state, when, you know, you're out of cards, you would just always be kind of top decking a 1-cost Meadow Strider. And then, you know, there are probably ways to get more of these and duplicate them, and playing multiple Meadow Striders. Like, it's kind of a cool way to go infinite, I guess. But, you know, compared to, like, Jade Idols or something, it just doesn't even hold up. As far as like infinite scaling threats, you know, these are always just sort of 6/11s. The bottom of the deck aspect is also pretty weird most of the time. Like, you could still get it out of your deck, of course, even though it's on the bottom. Ways to shuffle the deck, etc. But, you know, in a normal game state, it's just going to be down there for a while. It's not like you're getting this high tempo 1-cost 6/11. And then if you go infinite late in the game, it maybe doesn't even matter that they're 1-cost all that much, because you probably have a ton of mana anyway, because you're like out of other cards if you're truly going infinite. So they could probably cost 8 and you wouldn't even care. So, you know, maybe there's some weird world where you're tutoring these out of the deck because they're beasts specifically, or, you know, they're the only minions you have, and you're just trying to farm all these, you know, 1-cost 6/11s turn after turn. I still think that sounds just kind of middling at best. It would take a really specific combination of cool things to make that powerful. So pretty unlikely in my mind this card becomes insane, but it does have some really fringe potential. And then our final card has no fringe potential. One of the worst looking cards I've ever seen, I think. This is the Scavenging Flytrap, a 7 mana 2/7, very expensive, very small at a baseline, but after a minion dies, this gains its attack. So, I mean, I guess in theory, right, you like you want to like play this down and like clear your opponent's board, and it just gets buffed a ton, and then it hits for 1,000,000 damage, right? I just don't see that happening. You know, there's just no world in where this makes any sense to me at all. So like, yeah, like technically it can do something kind of scary, but the work required, the cost required, the setup required, I just don't see it. You know, like, this kind of needs to have charge or live for multiple turns, and it's just like none of that's gonna happen, right? I just don't think that's possible. So I think, unfortunately, Scavenging Flytrap looks pretty dang awkward. Torith the Unbreaking is a 5-star card. Mother Duck is a 4-star card. Daydreaming Pixie is a 1-star card. Critter Caretaker is a 4-star card. Dream Rager is a 2-star card. Ancient of Yore is a 4-star card. Dreambound Raptor is a 1-star card. Curious Cumulus is a 2-star card. Scorching Observer is a 3-star card. Sporegnasher is a 1-star card. Meadow Strider is a 2-star card. Scavenging Flytrap is a 1-star card. And yeah, I mean, you know, don't be, some people always get like distraught when they sell these neutral cards that maybe aren't all that exciting. It's just how it is, you know. It's always true that we get a bunch of like fillery neutral cards, and they usually get revealed all at once. There's usually one set where there's just like kind of bad scores, but I think there were a few with some potential here, some still pretty solid cards. I don't know if you noticed, I kind of tried to alternate them so there weren't like 4 bad cards in a row. I was like, good card, bad card, good card, bad card throughout the video. A little bit of a plan just to keep people from getting too depressed, in case I had like 4, you know, one-star cards in a row or something. So you know, there's potential here at least. There's fun stuff at least, and pretty cool Paladin card. I'm actually rather intrigued by how this one's gonna feel and how it's gonna play. I think it's really annoying and really high friction, and that's gonna make it good. But we'll see. It is only a 3/4 ultimately, so wouldn't be shocked if people weren't super excited about this one. That said, share your thoughts down in the comments below. Thanks much as always for watching. Stay tuned for more reviews, I think tomorrow. And until next time, game on.